Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to make chicken cordon bleu and some homemade Rice Krispie treats. So we had a message request for some cordon bleu, chicken cordon bleu, so we must deliver. Okay, I'm going to start out with my 2 chicken fillets, and we are going to kind of pound them down to about 1/4 of an inch thickness so that they'll cook up nicely. You got to hammer it pretty hard. I think I'm just going to do it without that. There we go. So this is a great thing if you need to let out some frustrations. So you've got to hammer it nice. You want it to be nice and even all the way through. And then about 1/4 of an inch thickness. And that way it will cook up evenly when we fry it and then pop it in the oven to bake. There we go. So we've got our nice thin, maybe a little more. Perfect. And I did trim off all the fat on these. So here we've got a nice, you can see the difference between one that is not pounded and one that has been pounded out. It's really hard. Well, we got to roll up our meat and cheese in there, but it would be really hard to cook it all the way through and maintain a lovely crust on it if we didn't have it pounded out thin. So, and I will say I am hitting it pretty hard. So this isn't just like a little love tap. It's a nice hammer down. And I always like to hammer it with the smooth side of the skin, because if you hammer the chicken breast cutlet underneath where it is more stringy, that is where it's going to kind of fall apart on you. Nice and thin. Perfect. So we've got our 2 little cutlets here, nice and thinned out. Now I'm going to wash my hands, and then we're going to make our quick breading. Okay. So we're going to be making our dredge for it, as well as our egg wash, and then our breadcrumb mixture. So we're going to start out with about a cup or so of flour. We don't need too much because we're just doing 2 fillets. Then we are going to add in some paprika, about 1/2 teaspoon. Just kind of eyeballing it. A 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder. A 1/2 teaspoon of basil. And a 1/2 teaspoon of parsley. And then 1/2 teaspoon of garlic salt. And last but not least, about 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. And this is going to make our kind of seasoned flour mixture that we'll be using to bread it. But I want to make sure everything is ready so that when I roll up my chicken, I can go, because my hands will be nice and dirty then. So here is our dredging mixture. Mix it all nicely up. And then we are going to have our breadcrumb and Parmesan mixture. So we're going to put in some breadcrumbs. Normally I would use panko, but I am all out, so we're just using some regular breadcrumbs.
You have a question. What type of pans are those that you're using for the dredging?
These are little bowls. So they're just, I actually got them from Target. They're like that magnolia, like hearth and hand, but they're just kind of nice bowls. I like. They're perfect because they fit like a chicken fillet in there nicely. But I think it's sort of like salad or pasta bowl. So we have 1/2 breadcrumb and 1/2 Parmesan cheese. And then we're also going to add just a little bit of seasoning to this. We're going to add some basil and a little bit of parsley and then a little bit of salt. There we go. We'll give this a nice mix. And we're ready. And now let's make our egg wash. So we're just going to use 2 eggs. 1 and 2. I'm going to give them a nice beat up. That way when we dip them in, so we've got to assemble everything because once we get to making them, it's going to be like touch, 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 and I don't want to have to go back and forth to do it. So we've got our dredge. This is going to be our egg wash. This is going to be our final crumb coat. And then we're going to do a Dijon honey wash that we will put on after we've breaded everything. So we need about 2 tablespoons of honey. There we go. 2 tablespoons of oil, olive oil. Let's see. Just got it, so we got to open that up. And of course, it doesn't want to pop off for me right here. Let me just grab. Oh, perfect. So we need about 2 tablespoons of this. And then we are going to put in some Dijon mustard. You got to use Dijon, no yellow mustard, no hot dog mustard. There we go. We're going to use a little bit more Dijon and a little bit for our cream sauce that we'll serve on top. But let me give this a quick mix up because we're going to brush this on it as well, and then we'll fry it up. So we're mixing our honey, oil, and Dijon together. Just want to give it a nice mix. Okay. And then let's get our Swiss cheese ready and our ham, because we're going to assemble kind of like a little roll where we're going to have our ham and our Swiss inside the chicken, and then we'll roll it up and secure it with some toothpicks, and then we'll bread it. But I don't want to have to be touching things once my hands are touching the chicken. So we've got our chicken, our ham, our cheese. Let's get some skewers out. I will say this is something you got to be prepared on because otherwise you'll be, washing your hands back and forth between every step. And a couple. These are little skewers, but you could also use toothpicks. Okay, now we are ready to assemble. We're going to flip them over. We're going to do kind of the ugly side on where we're going to lay the ham and the cheese, and the pretty side or the smooth side on the outside. So we've got our Swiss cheese. You could also use Parmesan, Gruyere in here, but Swiss is perfect for it. And then we're going to do a nice kind of thin layer of ham across. And you want to leave a little bit on your outside edges without the cheese and the ham so that it's not poking out, because it's not, it's not a little like sandwich, like where you have all the stuff flowing out. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take it and we're going to roll it up. There we go. And then I'm going to bring it over kind of like a burrito. And we're going to secure it with our little skewers here. And this is just until you've got that first kind of fry on it, and then you don't need to have them in there. And then we're going to roll this one up as well. There we go. And let's secure it. It's our little like chicken burrito. And I always say use more than enough skewers so that you don't have to worry about it. Okay. Now we've got our little chicken burritos here for our cordon bleu. And we're going to do our flour kind of dredge in here where we're going to coat it all the way around. There we go. And then I might pop these out real quick because my bowl is kind of small here. And then we're going to do it in the liquid egg, kind of coat it all the way around. Perfect. And now back over here in our breadcrumb and Parmesan cheese. You want to make sure you get it all coated around our chicken. And I'm holding it together, and then we'll re-secure it with our toothpicks. You want to make sure you get all edges of it. Beautiful. Look at this. Now let's put these back in here to secure it.
You have a question? Can you use panko?
Yes, I would have used panko, but I was out of it. I used it all when we made, I think, our yesterday when we made our Parmesan chicken parm sandwiches. And I thought I had another one, but it just had plain. So panko would be better. It'd give you the better crunch. But you know what? I feel like before like 2002, there was no panko breadcrumbs. It was just regular breadcrumbs. And then I remember when panko came out and it was like all the rage. Okay, now we did our flour dredge. Now we're going to do our egg. Make sure we get it all the way around. There we go. I want to just make sure I get on it so that all of our breading will stick to it.
Do you have a question? Is the chicken stuffed with anything?
Yes, it is stuffed with ham and Swiss cheese. And you could use Gruyere or Parmesan. So it just depends what cheese you like best. But Swiss is I think Swiss Gruyere is the most common type. There we go. I'm going to make sure I've got our breading pushed all the way around. And then we're going to secure again with our skewers to make sure it holds together well. And then we are done with all of our breading over here. So I'm going to give my hands a quick wash because it is very messy. And then we'll get our oil warming up and then we'll do our honey Dijon wash on it. There we go. So we're going to warm up some oil in our pan. And now some people just bake them, but you really want to have the lovely pan fry on it and then put it in the oven to bake. So you don't want to just do it in the oven because it just doesn't get quite as crispy. So we're just putting enough to kind of cover the bottom of my fry pan. You don't need too much oil, just, I think that's probably maybe 1/4 of a cup max. And now we're going to take, while this is warming up, we'll know it's warm when I put a drop of water and it sizzles. Here is our Dijon wash. I'm just going to give it another stir because the oil kind of separated. And we're going to brush this over our chicken cordon bleu. There we go. You can see this was just olive oil, honey, and Dijon mustard. And then I'm just going to use a basting brush here, and we're going to kind of brush it on very kind of gently so you're not taking off too much of the breading. There. And we'll go over here, and then we'll flip them in a second and get their underbellies. And beautiful. I feel like when I was first learning how to cook, it was, early 2000s. I was in middle school, and I feel like it was chicken cordon bleu was all the rage. And there was that cooking institute, the chicken cordon bleu, like Institute of Cooking or something like that. And I feel like this was the bougie meal everybody was making at the time. which it's really not too difficult to make. It's just, you know, takes a couple extra steps. Now we're going to get this little underbelly with our honey Dijon glaze. Beautiful. Okay. So we've got them nice and glazed up. Put this over here. And let's see if our water is hot, our oil is hot enough. So I've just got a little drop of water. So not quite, almost. I'm a little bit hotter. What I do is when I drip my water in, I want to have an instant sizzle. This was about a delay of a second or two, so it needs to warm up just a bit more. Let me grab my tongs. Doesn't take much to heat it up. There we go. So it should.
I have a question. Are you a chef?
I am just a home chef, self-taught. I didn't go to any fancy schools, and I only just cook for my family, which is a large family. So I'm cooking every day, typically for 7 to 9 people. Okay, we're gonna put it in. I'm gonna turn my oil down to about a medium, and we're gonna start with the sauteing.
Do you have a question? Is there a recipe for this?
I will get a recipe card out, but we will post our videos on the link on our page. That is going to be the quickest way that you'll be able to get our recipes. Is you can just go back and watch and reference.
And what's the sauce you put on it?
The sauce was a honey Dijon wash, so it was, you know, equal parts honey, mustard, and olive oil, and we just brushed it over our breading. For it gives it a nice little mustardy sweet Christmas to our cordon bleu, which is stuffed with ham and Swiss cheese. So the honey really pairs well with the ham in there. Okay, let's clear off this area. And let me wipe down my counter. And so what we'll do is we're going to fry off each side of it. And then we are going to make a lovely kind of Dijon cream sauce that you'll put over it. But we'll fry each side, then we'll pop it in the oven and we'll finish to bake it because as you see, these are very, very thick. And so it would be very difficult to cook the chicken all the way through by just pan frying. Okay, we've got this cleaned up. Got our oil cooking. And then what I'm going to do is when I flip it, I will, of course, remove my skewers and then flip it over. And then I might pop them back on. If it's holding together well, then I won't pop them in. But the only point of the skewers or the toothpicks is to hold everything together so it doesn't fall apart in that cooking stage, which can be, you know, a little tricky. Okay, let's start working on our cream sauce while this is frying. And I'm going to put my burner on, my back one on low, and we're going to put a little bit of butter in here to start with because we're going to make just a basic roux, and then we're going to add some chicken broth and some cream and some spices and some mustard to it. So we're going to start with we don't need a lot of sauce for this since it's just 2. So about a teaspoon of butter. And we're going to let that melt, and then we'll need a little bit of flour.
You got a question. What type of mustard was it?
We used Dijon, so just some Grey Poupon, Dijon mustard. You don't want to use yellow mustard. You want to use a Dijon or CD mustard. Gives you nothing. And then I mixed it with some honey and some olive oil to do a nice wash on it. Okay, let me get a little measuring thing for some water. So our sauce is going to be half cream, half chicken broth. And I'm going to do, since we're not making a huge amount, I'm going to do half a cup of each. But I always use chicken bouillon, so I'm going to mix my bouillon in my water. But let's look at this chicken.
You have a couple questions about the kitchen. They're asking if it's a set kitchen.
It is not a set kitchen. This is our house. I redid our kitchen about a year or 2 ago. So this is my design. We took out some walls and use that in there. You can see this was a wall to our dining room before, the beam up there. I mean, I guess you could do a quick swirl around if you wanted of it, but no, my living room's right there, and our dining room's there. I'm sure you can see kids' stuff every which way, but it is not a set. Although it works up, everyone says it's kind of perfect for it because, you know, it's nice and open. I actually was originally thinking about doing my kitchen sink here so I could like watch TV while I did the dishes. But our house is built on a slab, so we could not, well, we could, but we weren't about to spend the money for it. But we could not like rip it all up. But let's see, we've got our first fry on our chicken cordon bleu. My oil was a touch bit hot, but that's okay. It still has a nice golden crisp. But I turned it down a bit with the cheese in there that crisps up a little bit faster, but that's a-okay. It's not burnt, which is good. We've got our butter over here. We're going to start making our nice creamy sauce. We're going to add a little bit of flour. So we're making kind of a roux base. And we're going to add a little bit of flour in here. Just stir it up to thicken it. Okay, that was about a tablespoon of flour. Okay, turn it down just a teensy back there. And then we're going to add a little bit of bouillon into our water, and we're going to mix that in for our chicken broth. So we're going to do a 1/2 cup chicken broth and a 1/2 cup cream. And we're going to add it to our roux over here that we're starting to make.
You have a question? How long have you been cooking?
I've been cooking since I was in 7th grade is when I decided to take on, we had different chores in our family growing up, and one of them was cooking and cleaning. It paid the best, and you got to decide what was for dinner every night. So that was the chore I picked to do, and I just then really self-taught myself how to cook a bunch of different meals. So that's about going on like 20 some years ago. Okay, we've got our chicken broth here. We're going to add it into our flour and butter mixture a little bit at a time. And this is going to be, we're going to be making our sauce for our chicken cordon bleu. Beautiful. We've got this nice golden sear on it. And turn my pan off. And this is where we're going to add it to the oven, and we're going to let it finish cooking. We've got a lovely golden sear. I'm going to leave the the skewers in, and we're going to pop it in the oven. I have mine preheated to 350 degrees. I'm going to put it on the bottom so it's away from the heat, and we're going to let it cook while we finish up making the sauce and then our Rice Krispies for dessert. Okay, let's finish with our sauce here. We've got our flour in here with a little bit of chicken broth. Mixing it up a little bit. There we go. And then we're going to have my heat down nice and low, a nice squeeze of Dijon mustard. You want about a tablespoon in there. It's going to give you that nice mustardy taste in our sauce. And mix it up. Beautiful. And now we need our spices, and then we're going to add our cream towards the end. So we're going to use about a 1/2 teaspoon, not a 1/2 teaspoon, like a 1/4 of a teaspoon. I'm making a smaller amount than I normally would. So a 1/4 teaspoon of paprika, a 1/4 teaspoon of basil, which is really just going to be a nice little shake. And then 1/4 teaspoon of parsley.
You had a couple questions. Are you cooking for lunch?
Yes.
and then they want to know what your husband does for work.
Well, we both actually just work from home. We do consultation in there. And so my background, this is what I do for fun. My background's in education. I actually have my doctorate in education. So I do a lot of educational consulting, and so does my husband, which gives us, a little bit of the freedom to do this as well as be at home with our younger ones. Okay, so here is our lovely kind of cream sauce. We'll just stir it. I'm going to put it on really low, let it simmer. We put our spices in there, our Dijon, our cream, and our chicken broth, making sure now it's on nice and low. So let's start with our Rice Krispie treats.
You have a question about the roux? Is there a reason you use the pan and not the chicken pan?
Yes, because this had so much oil and grease and bits in it. So I didn't want to use it because it just wouldn't turn out nice. I want this to be a nice, creamy, velvety sauce versus a gravy that you make with the drippings. Okay, we're going to do our Rice Krispie treats. So Rice Krispie treats are a super simple thing, although I alter mine a little bit different because I feel like the recipe that you find on the back of the box is a little dry. So I use a stick of butter and I use almost double the marshmallows, and it gives you for a lovely, delicious Rice Krispie treat. I will say, once you've had them where you've doubled the marshmallows, you can't go back to an old Rice Krispie treat. You think it's too dry. So we're going to start by melting our butter here. Now, you could also do this in a microwave if you wanted to. In a microwave bowl, you would put your butter and your marshmallows, and you would heat it about every 45 seconds until you have a nice fluff going. But we're going to do it in the sauce pot here, which it's funny. Growing up, it was originally, that was how the recipe told you to do it, was in a sauce pot. And then I don't know how many years ago it changed to now the recipe referral on the back of Rice Krispies is always in the microwave. But it was funny because growing up, we always made them in a sauce pot, instead of the microwave. So we're melting up our butter. So I'm using 1 stick of butter, and then we're going to use 2 bags of mini marshmallows. Mini marshmallows work better than the regular things because they melt down a bit faster. And the trick is you don't want your heat on too high. You want it nice and low. So I melted my butter, but now I've turned it down to low. And I'm going to put our first one in. Let's get our second bag in. There we go. And then we're just going to stir these constantly until they have melted. And again, we have them on nice and low and slow with a stick of butter. Beautiful. I know my oldest son, he loves Rice Krispie treats when I make them, and these disappear so fast. And he has been asking, I want to say, I can't remember. I feel like it was 2.5 months ago when I made them last. And he has been asking every single week, oh, can you make Rice Krispie treats? Can you make Rice Krispie treats? So he'll be very surprised when he comes home from school today that he'll have some Rice Krispie treats waiting for him. There you go. I'm making sure I have all of my marshmallows coated in our butter. That just helps prevent it from sticking to the pot as much. I'm going to give our cream sauce over here a nice little stir. There we go. I'm going to turn it up just a pinch.
You have a question, what time is it for you?
It is about 2:20 here. So we typically do a little bit of a later lunch because we want to make sure our little ones are down for a nap. But then we also eat a later dinner. So that's just kind of our schedule here. There we go. Now you can see they're slowly starting to melt up. Now, this is where if you wanted to do like, Easter's coming around the corner. So if you wanted to do some funky colors in there, you could totally stir it in now. I remember as a kid, we used to do like Rice Krispie balls or Rice Krispie eggs, where you would put them in like the eggs or make them the egg shapes. That was just always like a big hit. So you could always like, now is the time to do it when you're melting the marshmallows, and the butter is when you add your food coloring. And then once everything is melted, if you wanted sprinkles added, that's when you add your sprinkles. But you want to make sure everything is melted before you do that. There we go. We're almost there. You can see we've got it almost coming all the way together. Beautiful. And then most Rice Krispie recipes call for about 6 cups. I doubled the marshmallows, so I'm going to use a bit more than 6 cups, but not too much more. Because again, you want your marshmallow, you want it to be a marshmallow dream. There we go. And once your marshmallows are completely melted, you're going to turn off the heat because you don't want it to keep melting. There we go. They're almost done. We've just got a few more lumps in here. Perfect. There we go.
So you have a question. What kind of pans do you like to use?
It really depends what I'm cooking. So I have a mix. For my non-stick, I have Hexclad, which I absolutely love. And then for my traditional pans, I have All Clad. I got them as a wedding gift from my family forever ago, and they're still going strong. And then for my Dutch ovens, I have a lot of Le Creuset that my mom has gifted me over the years, and then I have some Staub as well. Okay, our Rice Krispie, our marshmallows are pretty much all melted. You see we've got this beautiful marshmallow fluff. And now we're going to add in our Rice Krispies. Okay. So we're going to kind of eyeball 1, 2, about 8 cups. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we're going to give it a nice stir in here. And this is why I used a really big pot, because I want to be able to stir it up nicely without it overflowing. But again, you want to use more marshmallows. Most of the recipes on the back, it's like 1 bag of marshmallows for 6 cups. And it's just, they're always dry. And you want a nice, really marshmallowy, gooey Rice Krispie treat. That once it will be gooey now, but once it has cooled, it will firm up nicely, but it won't be dry. Beautiful. So we see here, we have them all coated. You can almost see the white coating on it. This is what you want it to look like. So I used 2 bags and then 8 cups of cereal and 1 stick of butter. I used a little bit more butter as well. But that's because you want it to be nice and delicious. We've got our heat off. And now I have my, this is a 9x13 pan. And what you want to do, if you don't want your Rice Krispies to stick to the sides, let me get going to use just a little bit of Pam. And you're just going to spray it. That way, when you push it in and want to cut it out later, it will lift up. So you just spray it because you just want a little bit of kind of a grease in there. You could also use butter or something to kind of grease up your tray. This is just going to prevent your Rice Krispies from sticking to it once they've cooled. And now we're going to add them in. So beautiful. Perfect. Make sure we get all of this delicious marshmallow fluff. And then I'm going to use my spatula to scrape up this last little bit. And the nice thing about marshmallows is cleanup is really easy. You just fill your pot up with water You let it soak for about 15 minutes and it will all be dissolved and wiped away. So it's like not that big of a mess. It looks messy in the beginning, but it really isn't. We're going to spread it out. Again, these are for my family. So I'm going to get in there. Delicious. Can't beat homemade Rice Krispie treats. And then the last thing you need to do is you've got to press them down firmly. So that this is going to press them into their shape that they need to be. So I put a parchment paper over the top, and then we're just going to kind of spread it out. And then we've got to press it nice and firm. And this is going to compact them down so that you have a nice, firm kind of square. You've got to push them down. Otherwise, they're just too, you don't get enough substance with each one. And they don't cut up as nice. So you want to make sure you've got them pushed down. There we go. And then the beauty of using the parchment paper is it should pull off fairly easy. And in about 30 minutes, they'll be cooled down and ready to cut and eat. So these are a pretty easy, delicious snack that you can make. Kids love them. Adults love them. If you buy certain brands of Rice Krispies are gluten-free, so you can get a gluten-free one, and you could easily make these gluten-free if you wanted to. My sister-in-law has celiac disease, so I always learn, like, what can I make for her that makes them gluten-free? The Rice Krispie brand is not, because it uses barley syrup in it, which has gluten. Okay, let's check on our sauce here. Beautiful. I'm going to just give it a little taste to see if it needs anything else. Delicious. So we are good with that. Let's go check on our chicken cordon bleu, see if it is ready. I had my oven preheated to 350 degrees. Beautiful. I think so. We've already got a little bit of a drizzle out. So let me grab my oven mitts. Perfect.
You have a question, request for the recipe for the Rice Krispies, what all the ingredients are?
Yes. So for the Rice Krispie treats, we did 2 bags of mini marshmallows, 8 cups of Rice Krispies, and 1 stick of butter. So just melt the butter and the marshmallows together and then add your Rice Krispies into it. Okay, we've got our chicken cordon bleu. Let me get our plate. Show you how we're going to serve it up. Yes, and as always, we will post the video on afterwards. Okay, let's get this guy up. We're going to remove our toothpicks. There we go. We have it right here. Beautiful. And then we're going to cut this guy so you guys can see the middle filling of it. So beautiful. You see we've got the ham, the chicken, all of it's cut through. The cheese is nice and melty. And then we're going to drizzle, of course, a little bit of our sauce over. Beautiful. And a lot of way people serve it is they cut it up into segments and then you drizzle it. But this, again, is our chicken cordon bleu. We made it with a delicious breadcrumb and Parmesan cheese crust stuffed with Swiss cheese and ham, and that we fried and then baked up. And then we made our delicious Rice Krispies. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We try to do live kind of cooking shows every single day, show you what we're eating. This was a recipe request from Dempsey, so I hope you're happy that we made it for you guys. I'm excited. I haven't made this in forever, but again, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe.